Hey everyone, it's Louis Dowdeswell here. I hope you're all doing really, really well. Thank you for tuning into the first episode of my new podcast where I dive deep into the minds of my guests and try to get to the truth of all things trumpet, music, performance, life, etc. With the invention of the internet, knowledge is so readily available. The trap with this is to obsess over the how questions. Everyone is looking for a quick fix to a problem or a dilemma, but I think the truth lies more in the why questions. One's motivations usually are the difference between goodness and greatness, and it's my quest to get to the bottom of what makes someone great at what they do. So to begin with, why am I doing this podcast? Well, I'm setting on a journey for the truth. I may not get it right all the time, and the path may be bumpy, but I do believe that I will help more people with this intention than any other. So bear with me as I humbly go on my voyage. I'm a firm believer in there being just one truth, and the closer we can get to that, will hopefully orient us towards a better relationship with our crafts and the people around us, making our lives more content and successful. And in getting closer to the why, I think the how miraculously reveals itself, truthfully, with clarity, and without resistance. The internet is filled with know-it-alls trying to take your money and attention for a quick answer to a how, and we all know how that ends, back on the internet for another try. So with a little patience, however, we will hopefully find the answers to all our questions hiding in the intentions and processes of the many individuals on this podcast. Speaking of great people, one of the reasons why I do what I do is because of this man and the inspiration he has provided for countless trumpet players and musicians on the planet. I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with him over the past 10 years, flying over to LA to stay with him and his wife, meeting up with him in Japan and Europe to play together at events, and a lot of phone calls whenever I needed the wisdom of a trumpet father. If you don't know his credits and achievements, just Google and have a look. It's quite substantial. You have certainly heard him on your radio or television probably every day, to be honest. Anyway, playing the trumpet is really hard, especially putting your head above the parapet as a lead player. But there really is no one better at this in the world currently than the great Wayne Bergeron. Hey, Wayne, how's it going?
Yo, Louis. Wow, man, you did exactly like I told you to say. Thank you for that. I'll send you the money later.
Thanks so much for being the first of my victims. I'm very grateful for your participation in this, and I think we're going to have a great conversation as we always do. So,
I'm looking forward to it.
How's your week been?
It's been not great. I'll just be honest, because I woke up the other morning with diverticulitis, which is a lower intestinal infection.
My goodness.
And I just woke up and my stomach was kind of messed up, and I didn't, I just thought it was, the usual stuff. Maybe I ate too much bad food the night before, but I ended up in the hospital.
Oh, dear.
And next thing I know, I was doing a CAT scan. So anyway, I'm on a liquid diet. Okay. For 5 days, and I can't eat any of the food I enjoy or any of that stuff. So that kind of sucks. But the good news is I will lose part of my fat rear end, which will be good. This will kickstart a good diet for me, which I've been wanting to do anyway. So I'm making a positive out of it.
It's making everything.
Yeah. So anyway, but I have worked. The next day I went to work and did Family Guy session, and my stomach was hurting a little bit, but the music's usually fairly easy for that show, so it was no problem. And
amazing.
So I'm functioning, and but kind of chilling too this week.
That's good. Amazing. Well, I'm sorry to hear about the diverticulitis. It's quite a mouthful, but hopefully it gets better soon. And you get back to your fighting best. So anyway, I figured the best way to start this was that I don't think we've ever spoken in public together. And so maybe the best thing to do is just to talk about how we know each other and how our journeys have collided. Yeah. Do you want to kick us off with what your first memory is of our relationship?
I believe I contacted you first. I think I heard when you were young, and maybe you were 16 years old or even 15 years old, and you were doing your videos that you did, and you'd be wherever you were in your mom's house. Yeah. Recording videos and playing along with different recordings. And I noticed you were playing along with a bunch of my stuff. And so I kind of became intrigued because it was better than me, and I was kind of pissing me off, just to be honest with you. I go, who is this asshole? And so I found your email in there, and I commented to you how great you sounded, and I don't know what you're doing, but just keep doing what you're doing. It sounds great. And you got back to me with a very nice, thankful message. And I think that's what sparked it. And we started kind of keeping in touch a little bit. And then I finally...
The first time, man, when I got that message, all right, I think you sent me a message on YouTube or something, and I just
Yeah.
I think maybe it came from your YouTube account, which was like Waynard B or something at the time. And I
Well, that
remember
was my old Waynard B. That was my old email account.
Right, yeah. So I remember
Waynard B at AOL.
There we go. And I remember seeing it and thinking, that's funny. And I read the message, and I obviously like totally went crazy. And then I think maybe we got in touch on Skype or something. But I remember because you sent me a message on Skype back when people used to use that platform for talking across the Atlantic. And I remember seeing this message come in. I was in the middle of a maths class, and I proper just like stood up and just left the class. The teacher was like, "Where are you going?" I said, I need to deal with this. Like, I've just got to go and deal with this. And like, you sent me this really nice message. I
remember this.
And I was like, right, I'm going to call him now. I'm going to call Wayne. And I was walking up and down the corridor of the school on the phone to you, I remember. And I think we were talking about neck hernia and whatnot. Something we both struggle with. But yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, and then
I met you when I met you the first time was when I came to London.
Yes,
2012. We did that concert with Craig Wild's band.
Yeah, 2012. That was a great year. That was fun.
And it was really for me. I mean, as far as concerts go, that was really exciting for me. I'd done a bunch of those kind of things, but being in London and I remember being backstage at that concert. And first of all, they moved it from one venue to the other because there was too many people. So I was...
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were going to do it at Ronnie Scott's.
Oh, wow.
But all those people wouldn't fit in there.
No.
So, and I didn't know any of that, and I was backstage, kind of getting ready and a little bit nervous for the game. I rehearsed with the band and they were so good. And I'll just tell a funny story because when we rehearsed in another pub that was closed downstairs.
Yeah.
And the band was
Spice
great.
Of Life, yeah.
The band was, just packed with incredible players, and I was excited to be there. And I'm it's going to be a great concert. Then they go, "Hey, you want to go to the pub and have a pint before the gig?" I go, "Yeah, man." So I go up and so we go to this other pub and everybody's pounding beers and drinks and blah, and they're nuts. And I'm going, I was being very cool because I got to have my wits about me. I go, "Oh man, these guys are going to suck now," and they didn't. It was freaking fantastic. So anyway, I know it's the culture there that, but anyway, everybody was doing that. And so I was a little bit nervous. So I was backstage at the club and I'm getting dressed and I'm warming up. And my wife comes back, who was with me on that trip, Barb.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Man, there's a lot of people here." I go, "Oh, well, great." She goes, "No, you don't understand. There's a lot of people here." I go, "Oh, yeah, that's great." She goes, "No, you don't understand. The fire marshal is here." And they ended up putting people on the stairs and stuff and making them
I was standing
there.
on the stairs, yeah.
And so I was like, "Well, holy crap, man." It really made me nervous, And then when I walked out on stage, Derek Watkins was sitting right in front of me. And I remember the first thing I said, I go, "Oh my God, Derek Watkins is here. I'm more nervous than a hooker in church." I don't know if you remember me saying that.
I don't remember, but wow, man. Yeah, that was an amazing gig. I actually bootlegged the whole gig on my old iPhone.
Oh my God! So we don't let that ever see the light of day. But
you play. There's a version of you playing. Is it Besame Mucho?
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. I'd
like to hear it because I don't remember. That was a
insane.
nerve-wracking gig for me.
Well, you absolutely killed it, man. It was
and we met and we ended up hanging out afterward. Remember, we went and had some Chinese food with you and maybe with Tom or with Callum or
yeah, probably Tom at the time. That would make
Tom Gardner.
Tom Gardner,
right?
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I remember just being an absolute hoot that night. It was,
and we
amazing.
were trying to avoid Frosty because he was.
He's probably sitting there with 40 pints and a cigar. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, he's so fun, man. The guy's hilarious.
Absolute legend.
But, yeah, he was trying to get me to hang that night, but I couldn't really go down that route. Even though I can, I'm capable of going down that route. But I couldn't.
Do you remember where you went after that trip? Like after London, did you go back?
No,
to
that
Europe?
trip. I think. That was the end of a tour.
End of a tour. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a tour for Yamaha, and it ended up being there, and it was a really great place to end.
Yeah.
You know, it was a fantastic trip. And my Yamaha host, who I'm spacing on his name now, he's not with Yamaha anymore. The guy that was there, he was so great to us.
Yeah.
And I just remember that being, one of the better experiences of my career.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's
as
nice.
far as doing those things, and when I got to come back and do it again, and you got to play in the band the next time.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That was even more awesome because we'd seen each other since then, and you'd come out here and stayed.
Yeah. I think maybe that so back in 2012 when you did that gig, I think we
We talked about it.
We organized it for that. I think it was for that summer. Yeah. Because it was 2012 summer is my last year at school. And 2 days before I came out to see you, I was playing football, soccer, in goal. And I have no idea. I had no idea how this happened. I was playing against another team, another school, and I go out to go and try and get the ball, just to take a goal kick, like no tackle or anything. I bend over to pick the ball up, and my ankle snaps in 3 places. It was crazy.
I remember you were out here with your giant cast, sitting in my car with your foot on the dashboard.
I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to go out. I was so gutted. But the doctors were cool about it. They just said, yeah, we'll do you like a half cast or something, so you're okay on the plane. But yeah, man, that was funny. And then on that first trip, you treated me to a lot of different experiences. I think we went to Arturo's house. I came to a couple sessions. I remember going to watch. We watched Chick Corea. Was at Catalina's with Arturo at the table. And
that's right. Yeah,
I remember having to Arturo sat next to me, and I've got this other stool, and my leg is like just hanging on this stool, while Arturo's trying to wash his shirt. He stinks. Anyway.
That was fun. Remember, we went out for whose birthday was it? Was it Gordon's birthday? I think so. We went to Benihana.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Gordon's birthday.
I think it was. Yeah. And I think Larry
I think it was summer, though. No, so it wasn't
there?
Gordon's birthday. It wasn't Gordon's birthday because it was summer.
I can't remember whose it was.
Anyway, but we went there and we had a nice hang. And
it was great.
And it was a fun trip. So that was, we got to hang a lot. And then you guys came back again.
I think I came back with
your fiance at the time.
Yeah.
With Millie.
Yeah.
And
that was a great trip.
So
we went and kind of hung out at Disneyland a lot. That was fun. It was a bit different. But,
That was a fun trip for you guys, I think. And we liked hosting you and all of that. So it was fun, man. Yeah,
and then I think after that you came back to London. That's when we saw each other next. And then I came out again with Tom Walsh. Remember I came with Tom and Ruben Fowler. We came and I think those guys, I think they stayed somewhere else. I stayed with you. And we just hung. Like I think we went and met Jerry that time, and
that's right,
and Jerry Hay, and I think we saw Gary quite a lot as well. Bless him.
Man, I miss that guy.
Yeah, sad times. But we had some great times. I remember having a lesson with Gary with those two as well, and he absolutely roasted us in all the right ways. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, Gary practiced a certain way. He was a very methodical, like what you got to do.
Yeah,
it's very by the book stuff. A little, almost too much. Because if he would go down the rabbit hole of this is the only way.
Yeah.
And we kind of know that that's not true.
Yeah.
But I remember he would play the Thiek book, and I'm sure you were playing.
We
out
did
of
that.
Yeah,
for
the
sure.
Art of the Trumpet, and he could play the absolute shit out of every one of those etudes.
He could just play them
great. He'd play them just great, man. And I remember practicing with him and just feeling like I just completely suck, But he also knows them, I don't want to be sight reading them. He knows them. He's worked them out. But part of his greatness, he was such a rock.
Yeah.
Of a trumpet player, just like a wall of sound and precise and if you practice that way all the time, that's the kind of player you're going to be. His thing was about precision.
I always thought his sound was like a cannonball.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
Jerry, on his game, man, he could be playing a high F sharp and you could be playing a note under him. And if you're on the same microphone, it doesn't matter how loud you play, you are not going to be heard. And it wasn't that he was that much louder in the room. It would be balanced. Yeah. But his sound concentration would be like, it would be so in the microphone element. And Jerry Hay and I have talked about this with him. And so I learned how to play with Gary, when we'd play on one mic.
Yeah.
Now, if I played first, it would be better because he would like reel it in and it would sound fine. But when he played first, I had to fucking rev it up, and play kind of past my comfort zone.
Wow. Yeah.
So he was, he was something else, man. He was one of my heroes, of course, and dear friend. And
Yeah.
I learned a lot from him about recording music and producing
Yeah.
and
Special
all of
guy.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think on that trip, I went and heard my first 192 kilohertz brass ensemble recording that he did. And he was showing it to us. It sounded absolutely beautiful, playing as well as the recording aspect. So, yeah,
Right.
that was an amazing trip. And then I think the next time that we saw each other must have been, I don't know, could have been Japan. Could it have been Japan?
Yeah, that's right. With the Big Phat Band, you came and and played
Maybe
with
I
us.
maybe I saw you in Europe for a little thing. Like maybe I
Oh, yeah,
came
in
over.
Holland.
Yeah, in Holland. Yeah, just came over. For
You
a
came
day
over.
just
We
for-
were in Rotterdam.
Yeah.
And you happened to be in town, so I had you come up and sit in, and
That was fun.
There's
There's a funny
it was
video.
really fun, man.
There's a
I was
funny
glad
video
to have
on,
you there.
There's a funny video on the YouTube of us discussing. This is a good time to talk about this actually. Discussing where we were going, because it was like, what happened? I came to the gig. It was your gig, and I came in and just guested on "Gonna Fly Now." I think maybe we played "When You Wish." I don't remember.
No, I don't think we played "When You Wish" on that gig.
And well, we did "Gonna Fly Now" at the end, and we
we did that, I
hadn't
remember.
discussed what we were going to do. So
Right.
there's a video of us playing this online,
I've seen that.
and we spend the entire time discussing what we're going to play. But it doesn't actually come across particularly polite to the rest of the band. So there are all these funny Facebook comments saying,
I'm leaning over and going, all right, you play here.
disrespectful trumpet soloists. Anyway, it was very funny because, obviously we didn't really know what we were doing. It came out quite fun anyway. It was it was a good time. Yeah, and then it was Japan, which was about a week after my honeymoon in 2019, just before COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was not that long ago then, really. Yeah, wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, 5.5 years ago, which is
It
kind of
seems
crazy.
longer than that because
Yeah.
of COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
COVID makes everything seem longer,
Strange,
But,
yeah. I don't
but
think,
yeah, that was so fun to get to do that with you. And we were both like, you had honeymoon chops,
I did.
and I was going through chop shit myself,
I literally got party booted. It was a
Fortunately, because we
disaster.
had Ryan DeWeese, we had our secret weapon there. So
Badass.
between the three of us, we were able to knock out the lead stuff.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, that was a trip to Blue Note Tokyo to play with the Big Phat Band together. So I think maybe
really
Dan
fun.
Fanaro couldn't make that trip. So Gordon very kindly asked me if I wanted to come over, and I had an absolutely amazing time. Do you remember when we went to the Pussycat Bar? There was this weird bar that we all went to, like karaoke bar. And there
I missed that one.
I'm pretty...
Yeah, I did not make that one, but I heard about it.
You definitely made it. I've got video of you.
I was there?
absolutely tearing it out. Yeah,
Oh my God, I don't even remember that.
there was a group of Japanese businessmen sitting at the bar, trying to sing "Uptown Girl," but the thing is, the thing that made me laugh so much about that was, so I learned from my friend who's English but lives in Japan. He told me that there was some kind of Japanese Western phonetic alphabet, right? So they can say the words by reading the Japanese phonetic versions, but they don't know the meaning of it, and they also don't. It's not like the English words. So they're singing the song, but with a strange accent, and they don't know what the words they're singing. They're just singing it in English.
Right.
But anyway, it was absolutely hilarious because you had "Uptown Girl." Blah, blah, I don't know what the rest of the lyrics are, but these three businessmen were absolutely arseholed singing along to all this Billy Joel music with this phonetic alphabet. They had no idea what they were singing, but obviously you had the whole Big Phat Band sitting on these tiny little sofas, just wetting themselves the whole night at these strange.
It's funny.
Very
I don't
strange
remember.
situation.
I don't remember this. So you'll have to show me the video. It'll jar my memory.
I'll try and find it.
And that's one of the things that we can talk about getting older, but that's one of the things that happens is
Yeah.
like you forget shit.
I do remember. I think Sal Lozano was the main culprit on that trip for going out to the
he's
Pussycat Bar
trouble.
and having a laugh. But yeah, anyway, there we are. It was a good time. But I don't think I've seen you since then. So there we are. For anyone that was interested in our joint journey or joint story, that's really what it was. And obviously Wayne has been, as I said before, on the phone a lot for me and recorded on my album. So I feel very happy to be to be in association for sure. It's been a
Louis
lovely time.
Louis mentioned earlier about me being his trumpet father, because I always refer to him as my trumpet son.
Yeah.
And just because he's so much younger than me. But I think we play a lot alike. I mean, we have the same approach. Louis said he learned a lot from me when he was younger, but I have to, it's come full circle where I'm learning a lot from him now. And I've had trumpet questions for him as I've gone through my own struggles, we can get into later.
Yeah.
And about the recording aspect, because Louis has become such a great producer, and because of him, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars that's sitting in front of me that you can't see, and recording gear and having the proper gear and having, as you know, there's more to this. A lot of people go, oh, all you need is a microphone and this and that, and a laptop, and
Yeah.
that's great if you want to have something that sounds like you did it in your garage. But if you really want to have, truly, if you want to have a high quality, you need to put some money in the act, and which I've done here, and Louis has done as well. We both have separate studios. He's sitting in his, and I'm sitting in mine, separate from our homes in our backyards.
Yeah.
And,
it's interesting. It's the first time I've seen your studio finished. This will probably be the first time that your studio has been aired on, if anyone's watching this on YouTube.
Well, a couple of people have just seen it online. It's I can show you just how, I can see if I can move my camera here. So you can see there's my sound panels. A guy came in and tuned the room with these panels.
Wow.
So I would play, and then he would put stuff up, and he'd go, we need something here and here.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to make it too dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it actually sounds very good. Even if you play towards the computer away from the panels, it sounds good. I recorded trumpets in here the other day, and they were sitting back there.
Yeah.
It sounds great. But if I play that way, it sounds it's really a nice sound. It's got a little bit of life to it, but not overwhelming.
And I see you got a room mic up there that you use?
I do. It's just a 67 knockoff.
Yeah.
But I'm planning on, Royer's got something I'm going to put, that they've got a ribbon that I'm going to put up there. It's a kind of an inexpensive.
Yeah.
It's not stereo. It's a mono room mic.
Yeah.
Because the room's not really big enough to, it's only 12 feet wide.
Of course, yeah.
So, to have a stereo mic up doesn't really make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So, but just for some ambience, I don't usually use it, but for something classical or something, I might.
It looks really nice in there, cozy. You got all those photos up.
Oh, it's great. I got maple floors, and I've got track lighting, and I've got a really nice, air conditioning unit up here, and I got in front of me here. I have some cabinets and art and stuff that you can't see, but it's cool. It's definitely a great space to have. I was out here this morning, writing French horn parts for something from one of my wife's guest artist concerts coming up, and I was out here at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
I had my I was just doing it on my cornet because my trumpet's in the case, and making up some French horn parts for this thing. And
nice.
I put in the mistakes and everything that were going to happen, so I just figured I'd write them in.
Put the splits in, yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry for my French horn player friends listening. We love you.
Yes, we do. Would you mind just moving your camera desk a little bit down for me there, Wayno? Just,
Let's see what I can do.
It hasn't reset perfect. There we go. That looks great.
How's that?
Yeah, it's perfect.
I got my microphone's kind of in the way here.
No, I like it. It's nice.
Okay?
What is that mic? I've not seen it before.
It's a FIFINE.
Cool. Is it just like a computer
whatever the hell that
sort
is.
of thing? So you just use it for the...
I just use it for this.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, no, it seems to work.
It's better than your laptop microphone, which is what I was worried we might have. So,
and even for these kind of things, when I do this with people and they do it like that, if I play, then the sound craps out, and there's a lot of problems. So I even put a little money in the act this way, just so it would.
That's good.
I've got a decent camera and and a decent microphone. So
it's perfect. So we'll move on to a little next section here. But before we do, it feels like a pretty good time to say that before we move on now, just my little script here. Yes. So we are recording this podcast during the Southern California wildfires disaster. A very tragic situation for everyone affected, and especially those who have been so unfortunate as to lose their homes and their belongings, along with many of their memories. Has it affected you at all, Wayne, personally, or?
Well, it's affected me emotionally for sure.
Yeah,
I'm in the San Fernando Valley here, and it did. We packed.
Oh wow!
I mean, we did pack some stuff, and it's all still packed because even though it was far away from us over the mountain
Yeah.
where we hike, the fire came up to Mulholland. We call it Dirt Mulholland, where it's actually a fire road, Mulholland Highway.
Yeah.
And we hike there. The fire burned up to that, and fortunately, they had a ton of firefighters there keeping it from coming over the hill. Because if it came over the hill into Encino,
Okay.
like where Arturo lives, that house I took you over there,
Yeah.
and then came down with winds like that, blowing into the San Fernando Valley across the flat,
Yeah.
it would go from one house to the other, and it's very possible that parts of the San Fernando Valley could have burned, even though it's, middle of concrete jungle and, but it's all homes.
Yeah.
And very easily could have gone roof to roof and kind of done a lot of damage. And we had smoke and we could see flames from where we lived.
Wow.
It's only 3 miles away from that hilltop.
Is it
So
kind of
it
getting
was
under control
terrifying.
now? I haven't really been keeping it up.
Yeah, it's more under control for sure. Like the Palisades fire, which was one of the big ones,
Yeah.
was the hardest to get under control because it's closer to the beach. The winds were 70 to 100 miles an hour, and many. There's a whole area there in Pacific Palisades, this village that's gone. I mean, I've had lunches there. It's just the most beautiful place. It reminds me of what happened in Maui,
Right. Yeah.
in Lahaina, where I was. There where all that burned. I was there. It's all gone now. It's the same with this place, and I have many musician friends that live there that lost their homes. A very dear friend and one of the top violinists in town, Charlie Bicheret, here, who I've been to his home on numerous occasions, and he lost his home. Another composer, Star Perotti,
Yeah.
a dear friend of mine, and she owned the piano. She bought it from Sony. That's now MGM, the piano that Wizard of Oz was played on. She owned that piano, and it's gone. So some historic things that have been lost, as well as personal things in home. Anyway, and there's numerous. John Clayton, many people that the names
Yeah.
of have lost their homes. Jens Lindemann
Yes. Yeah.
lost his home, and his wife Jennifer, and my so people I know
I heard
that
Vince
are.
Mendoza as well.
Vince Mendoza, and just tons of other people. The list is too long.
Yeah.
There is somebody did put out a list of GoFundMe's to help these people
Okay.
and organizations to contribute to that. I will get an updated copy and send it to you
Yeah. Great. I'll put that on the description link for the.
at some point. I've
Yeah.
donated to a few of them, and there's so many. If I donated all of them, I'd be broke.
Yeah.
There's so many.
So many people.
But I offer help. I've donating clothes, and it's just heartbreak. Andy Martin's house was very close
Yeah.
to what burned around him. So was Malcolm McNabb's house, which has been spared. That was the Eaton fire, equally as huge.
Do they have? Because obviously there can be a lot of people who are, categorically homeless, if you will, in that they don't
Yeah.
have their home anymore. Is there a bit of a plan now for, because there's now going to be too many people and not enough buildings, right? The supply and demand is going to be a bit funny. Are they
Yeah.
going to try and build things quickly, or do they have any idea on what they're going to do with the surplus of people?
I've really heard nothing.
No.
I mean, first of all, just the environmental part of it has to be fixed first. There's poison, when you think of all the stuff burned that's there, that has to be cleared out and environmentally sound, easy for me to say, before they can even clear it out.
Yeah.
It's going to be years, many years.
Wow.
And it's going to be interesting, like how many home builders do you have
Yeah.
that can build homes?
Yeah.
And now, not to get political, but with what our current administration is talking about doing, with exporting, illegal aliens and things like that from here. I mean, a big part of that workforce is probably, I would say, is part of that.
No,
They
that makes
pick our
sense.
crops and build our homes that the contractors hire.
Yeah. Wow.
And you can just imagine what that's going to do. So there's a lot of repercussions from all of this, and I'm not going to get into politics right now because I'll get pissed off. So I guess that tells you what side of the fence I'm on. So but we don't need to go into it. I'd rather go into happier things. I don't even use that person's name, but anyway, yeah. So that's kind of what's going on here, and it's another fire very north of us that Gordon Goodwin had to leave his home because of smoke, and it was 30 miles away.
Wow. Actually, I think
Yeah,
I
so
saw his
that-
Facebook post on that. There was an amazing couple of photos he put up.
That's 30 miles away from him. And, but it's so toxic. So the air around here is really messed up. Right. We're very lucky right here. If you were at my house, you'd go, oh, it's just a little windy.
Right.
You wouldn't know anything that's even happened,
Wow.
Then tomorrow is supposed to rain the next couple of days, which will help at least substantially get these other fires out.
Yes.
But then we have the problem of landslides in the hills, and because of the soil now being,
Wow,
the no
that's a
trees
lot.
are burned, and so it's just one thing after another here. And with fortunately, we have a lot of resources here now
Yeah.
because people from Canada and Mexico and other states have brought their fire crews in here. So now when fires are breaking out, there's a lot more people tending to them.
Okay. Yeah.
You
Get on
know.
top of
So
it.
anyway, that's kind of what's going on here, and my heart goes out to all
Yeah.
my friends, and I think about them daily, and I cry daily about it, and I just feel so fortunate that we're okay. So.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I feel for everyone who's dealing with that at the moment. It's a very difficult time. But yeah, I will link the in the description if Wayno can get it over to me at some point, the list of people who have lost their homes, and if anyone is able to donate towards that cause, we'd be very, very grateful. There's a lot to do. So yeah. Anyway.
Some of these people have a lot of means,
Right.
Obviously some of them, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them have lost everything and don't have the money, or
Of course.
some people have had second homes and were able to go to them.
Well, anything to just carry the burden, right? Anything to
Yeah. And there's other organizations. There's an organization called Music Cares that's been helping musicians in need in Los Angeles here for years.
Yeah.
That's a great organization as well. I think it might be musiccares.org.
Okay.
But I'll send you all that at some point.
Perfect. Amazing. Okay. We'll move on to another section here. So, as you heard in my introduction, I want to get as close to the macro question of why you do what you do, and in doing so, we may help some of our listeners. Of course, there is probably a simple version of the answer, like I need to pay my mortgage. However, hopefully, you'll feel able to share some of your wisdom hiding deep in your motivations and experiences of your 40-year or so long career. Now, I'll be honest. I started writing some questions, right? Some questions that maybe you either hadn't been asked before or kind of got more to the point. And as I was writing them, just more and more and more came out. Got like, I don't know, 20 questions here. We're not going to get through all those questions, but I also hope that this isn't the only time that I can have you on the podcast. So maybe we can try and hone in on a couple here and then maybe leave some for another time. Who knows?
We can do a part two or something.
Yeah,
a part
exactly.
One, part two
We've
kind
got
of thing. So whatever.
I'll
try not to get too long-winded, but sometimes things need to get long-winded.
I want this podcast to be long-winded. I want it to be nice and deep, and I think, as I sort of stated in my introduction, I do feel as though we really need to we do need to deepen our understanding of some of the psychology around learning. I get a lot of students who come to me, who want to just have an answer to something, and I unfortunately, if I'm being honest, with them, I have to tell them the truth, which is, what you have done has taken a very, very, very long time to achieve, and it is not an easy thing to do anyway. I think there's definitely a balance between being, how can I put it? Like, casting your lots, if you will. Like, there's a balance between trying to control everything, practicing, working hard, but then also taking a step back. Children are very good at this. Taking a step back and just recognizing that there's a whole journey that you need to go on, and you can't account for every single thing. Someone will come, they'll say to me, "This is the one thing I can't do on the trumpet," and then I'll say to them, "Well, why do you want to fix it?" And then they'll say, "Well, because I want to be able to do everything." And then I have to ask the question, well, at what cost? Because there's always a cost to be had, And so this is kind of the direction I want to go with this, is to try and figure out what that balance is between, letting things be and then trying to fix stuff. And I've definitely fallen into the trap for a lot over the last 10 years, particularly over the last 5 years, with never being quite happy with what is enough, trying to fix something and then going 5 steps back, getting frustrated, annoyed, and having a big setback that I can't get over. And actually really what it was to recognize that, yes, I am now 31, and I remember when I was 20 and I said to myself, this is the player I'm going to be when I'm 30, right? And then it never ever feeling quite satisfied with that. So you kind of push more and more to get better and better, and then in doing so you ruin other things. You sort of know what I'm getting at here.
I know exactly what you're getting at.
And I think that no one escapes this, right? No one escapes, especially people that are good at what they do, because if you're good at what you do, you've by definition put a lot of time into it. So, and you've been analytical and whatnot. But I'm not convinced that that's necessarily the best way of doing it. I used to teach with all these variables, mess around, do all these experiment, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I'm starting to come to the idea that maybe intuition is king, and just trying to figure out how much is enough. So I don't know. Do you agree with any of that, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think intuition or natural ability or whatever that means are really great. And and if you can do something and nobody's like, if you were natural at something like whatever, if you learned how to throw a baseball real fast without, people go, man, how are you doing that? You never trained.
Yeah.
And so with that is great. And so you follow that. But as you get older and you're doing that, you start running into problems like, oh man, like, as your muscles are developing differently or whatever, and you start running and you maybe you have to take a few steps back and look at the technique that was involved you knew nothing about.
Yeah.
So I think there is a time, and I always use like a car analogy, like if the car is running well, why are you going to open the hood? Just to look at it, to go, oh, what can I make better? No, you just leave it alone. But if something's not right, you have to open the hood and go, there's something wrong here that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
I know nothing about cars. I happen to know a lot about cars, but a lot of people don't. Where do you start? So you go to a mechanic or a teacher. Yeah. And they all have an opinion too.
Yeah.
And they may send you down the wrong path. And we see this online all the time with all the experts. Yeah. That are giving a lot of bad information and gimmicky things and trying to tell you there's one answer, there's a trick and all that. And there are some tricks. I mean, there is advice you can give. They go, oh, that might spark something,
Yeah.
But as you know, we're all a little bit different, and our teeth structure and everything. So we can't all be taught the same way.
No.
And you've kind of taught me that, because we're all different. And so what works for one person may not necessarily work for this other person. And we can get into that later. I think maybe some of your other questions to me might involve this a little bit.
Exactly.
And we can dive deeper into that. But yeah, I think that intuition is a great thing.
Yeah.
Until you hit a brick wall, and then you've got to open the hood.
Yeah, it's interesting that you use a car analogy, because I started learning golf, and I think golf will come up quite a lot in this podcast. Not maybe specifically this one, but in general, because learning a new skill that's basically like almost identical to the trumpet in a lot of ways, as an adult, crucially important. In learning that skill, I went and I had lessons with these teachers, and these teachers they were charging me lots of money, and I go for an hour, and they give me one little thought to think about, and I take it away, and I get no better at golf. They just, and then they come and ruin something else, and then they pretend to fix it, but before you know it, they're a millionaire and they've taken all my money. But I met this one teacher who teaches, instead of teaching the shot, instead of teaching the swing, he teaches the shot. And his analogy with the cars, interesting. He said one of the problems is that a lot of the golf pros, they're going and they're having these new young pros, they're going doing 4-year degree or whatever it is that they're doing, and they're learning all the mechanisms in the golfing machine, right? And then when they go to their students, who are like, either never hit the ball before or in their 60s, just want to have a bit of a laugh, get around the golf course a bit better. They're getting them to do all these crazy like movement things that aren't going to make them any better at golf. They're just going to confuse them. And my golf coach just said, you see, the thing is, when you've got a race car driver, Right? You want them to know exactly what they're doing with the three pedals and the steering wheel, But it doesn't the rest, like what's going on in the car, does not matter to them as the driver, right? So if you can use the car well, then you're going to be different to obviously the mechanics that are building the car. Now, sometimes it's good to know why the car may do a certain thing, but at the same time, I do get the impression that what we're really trying to figure out is how efficiently we can use the three pedals and the steering wheel of the trumpet, right, as best we possibly can, and only dive under the hood, as you say, when it's necessary. Is that fair?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I would agree with all of that.
It's quite cool. Okay, cool. So anyway, I got loads of these questions. I've kind of ordered them a little bit, but let's start with a pretty broad one, if you've got any. So, can you recall any musical experiences in your career that have made you think, yes, that's why I'm doing this? Particularly any that maybe took you by surprise?
Yeah, there's a couple. And one of them is kind of a little bit earlier in my career. I did a session for Mel Tormé. I was playing fourth trumpet, and there was like 5 different composers on all the tunes, and it was Sammy Nestico, and it was Pat Williams, and Bill Holman, I think, did 2, and then Mel Tormé did 2 of his own arrangements, I think, and I was working for this contractor, Joe Soldo, he's 95 now and still kicking ass, But I worked for many things for him, and he kind of gave me my career, basically. And anyway, so I'm playing, and it was Rick Baptist and George Graham and Warren Looning and I, and so that was Joe Soldo's trumpet section the time I got in there anyway. And sometimes a couple of different people would come in, just depending. And Rick Baptist was playing first and playing great, and he would give everybody a couple of charts to play, right? So he gave Warren a couple and George a couple, and he gave me the Pat Williams charts because he had a lot to do, and Pat's charts were hard. They had a lot of sustain. He likes to hear his voicing. So he writes a lot of held notes, with good voicings. So I got to play those, and because of that. And I knew Pat Williams because I wore out the Threshold album when I was in high school.
Record, yeah.
And I'd also, at 13 years old, I played in this thing at the Hollywood Bowl, the Battle of the Bands, and I was in a thing called a production band that backed the singers and stuff. And if your band didn't make the finals, you could audition for this band. So I was in that band. I was the youngest person to ever do it.
Wow.
And Pat Williams was a guest artist one year, and he would be the adjudicator at these festivals too. So he came over to me after I played this chart. We took a break, and I was going to play this chart best I could. I was 30 years old, maybe something like that, or maybe a little bit older than that, maybe 35.
Yeah.
And he comes over and goes, "Hey, man, how come I don't know you?" And I go, "Oh," he goes, "You sound great." And I go, "Oh, thanks, man." I go, "I love playing your music." I go, "Actually, you do know me." And so I told him that story. He goes, "Oh my God." And he goes, "I remember that band. I was playing third trumpet in that band." And he goes, "I remember that band." And anyway, I played on everything he did from that point on.
Wow.
And eventually ended up playing first trumpet for him. So when we did his record, Aurora, we'd done Sinatra Land, which was incredible to be involved with. But Aurora was the first time I was the first trumpet player. Wow. So I remember sitting there on that session, and I'm established in my career at this point. But I remember sitting there going, I'm playing first trumpet on a Pat Williams record. Wow. And I'm sitting with Gary Grant and Chuck Finley and Warren Looning, and I'm just like, how cool is this? And I'm going, I should be playing fourth trumpet.
Wow.
And Chuck at the time was going through, his mother-in-law just passed away, so he hadn't been playing, so he didn't really want to play any lead, and he had some solos to play. And then Warren had a lot of solos, so he didn't want to play any lead. And then Gary was going, "Oh, you got it, man, you do." And so I played all of it except for one tune, and I would have easily just. Yeah. So it was a long day for me because we were doing everything live, but it's one of my proudest moments.
Yeah.
As a lead trumpet player.
That's beautiful.
Playing on that, so that's one of those moments in my career where you go, okay, this is why I do this. I love this music.
Yeah.
I'm being paid well to play it. I'm looking up there. I'm on all of my heroes, and within the rest of the band as well. All players I've looked up to, and I've seen their names on numerous records my whole career, and that's the first time I felt like you're going to do okay.
Yeah, like I'm in the squad now. you know.
Yeah, and meeting Sammy Nestico for the first time was another one of those moments. I did a Christina Aguilera record for him, and I remember when I was a kid, when I grew up, my first big band chart I ever played was the Queen Bee, Sammy Nestico, and so in junior high. And so by going through high school, my band, they all loved Count Basie and Sammy Nestico. That's all we played. So meeting him later, after seeing that name and listening to all those recordings, and then him becoming a very dear friend of mine later in life, and getting to play on his records, and those are two particular moments. As a matter of fact, you can't see it, but I have there's a picture of music up here I recorded called Bustling, and it's a little trumpet feature that he wrote.
I remember when that came out. Yeah.
And it was originally recorded by Louis Belson's band, and he wanted me to play it on his record, and I played it, and he signed the music to me, and he said some, I won't even say it because I don't want to seem egotistical, but it's very flattering, and it was just like wrenches my heart that he wrote that to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, very cool. And Pat Williams also said some very flattering things about my playing that do I think that they're all true? No, but whatever, it's like, oh my God, Wayne Bergeron, you did a pretty good job, And
nice.
So those two things. And then more recently, getting to play with a Big Phat Band is always, whenever I'm driving this band, man, I always just feel like, man, I'm driving a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
And it's really some of my greatest musical experiences have come from that band. And it's done a lot for my career as well. It's because the band is so highly visible. It's people see me a lot in that band.
That's the first time I ever heard you. I think it would have been around the year 2000, and we had the Swinging for the Fences album at home. My mum used to run a big band, and I remember when that album came out. Well, actually, I don't remember when the album came out. Well, the drummer in my mum's band said, "Have you heard this band? Like, it's this new band. It's amazing. It's from Los Angeles." And there was always debates about whether or not it was too clean, which I just thought was ridiculous because it just sounded
it was all live.
Well, it
was all live.
It's been amazing hearing those stories since too. It's just
it was done to tape. Now it doesn't mean we didn't edit.
No, of course.
There was no Pro Tools, but we we did put different takes together on something. Maybe something was better here.
Yeah.
But basically, that's how the band sounded.
Oh, it's just astonishing.
And it's get off topic a little bit. That's something that bugs me when people say, "Oh yeah, they're great, but it's too clean." I'm sorry. You listen to Count Basie's band. They're so clean and perfectly tight and perfectly in tune.
Yeah.
But nobody says that.
No.
It doesn't have to be out of tune or loose to swing.
No.
Now there are sterile bands. I don't believe Gordon's band is one of them. No. We play music that's much straighter at times, but people will compare that music to Count Basie, and that's not fair.
No, and I think as well.
We're a concert jazz orchestra.
The sort of people, the sort of people that are saying that are not. They're not necessarily.
And so, so it's not your. People have their opinions about whatever. There's other bands that you don't have to like the music. I mean, there's bands that sometimes I like listening to the music but not playing it because it's no fun to play, and vice versa. I like playing the music, but I don't like to listen to it. It's not my thing, and that's okay, and you can say that, but don't say it's this or that and put it in a category like it's not good.
Oh, I'll never forget hearing that stuff for the first time, man. It was so burning, and also like, I don't know, I've got a little thing down here, this silly little question here. But
let me add one more thing to my thing, and let's move on.
Yeah. Go on. It's kind of relevant, but go on.
Doing the new West Side Story movie for me was one of the most exciting things of my film career, for sure.
Wow. Yeah.
Being asked to fly to New York several times and being treated like a total rock star, and going and playing with that great orchestra. And then I played with them a couple of times live, so I feel, you're going into somebody else's backyard when you do this,
Yeah.
It'd be like flying me over and me putting me in the LSO on a movie.
Yeah.
They're going, what the fuck is he doing here? But I'm there for a reason, whatever reason that is, and sometimes, I've always felt very welcome everywhere I've gone.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it, whatever. But I felt very welcome there, and I was very nervous the very first time I went there because Phil Smith was playing first trumpet the first time I went there, and I'm like, oh my God, why, there's a lot of players in New York that could have done this.
Yeah.
But because I'd done it in LA and I got a recommendation, so long story, but it led to the movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're family to me. We're friends. The trumpet players and I, and some of the string players would always come over and give me hugs and, oh man, it's so great to have you back here again. And I truly felt like part of their family, So I'm sure they will have me back again, and it's really not a problem. I'm sure there's a bunch of pissed off trumpet players there, but whatever, yeah, it's going to happen,
Yeah, exactly.
From time to time. So those are things that stick out in my mind. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What was your point?
I was just going to say, I got this silly little thing that I've written down here that reminded me of when I did hear you for the first time in the Big Phat Band. I used to say, what I've got, you've pushed a trumpet to places many didn't think was possible. I believe you're the guy that made double D the new double C and double A the new double G. Now, I say this sometimes in town, and people laugh at that little saying, but yeah, I do think that you did make double D the new double C, and the number of A's on those records. Just to get geeky for a minute, it's just like, I this is totally not accurate, but when I was growing up in my mum's amateur big band, a G, that was the note. Everyone wanted a G, wanted to go for the G, and almost every single hard tune in the pad went up to a G. Right? Like people were struggling to get there and whatever, and that's great. That's what it's all about. But I remember when you were just drilling these A's on the Big Phat Band, and I was thinking, hang on, that's not a G. That's not a G. That's an A. The trumpet's not supposed to go that high. And I was going to make it my life mission to try and do that too. So, yeah, I mean, that's part of the inspiration, I guess.
Well, it's funny, because that note, when I was young, when I was your age, I knew you had a lot of chops in high school, and so did I. But I couldn't play an A.
Oh, really?
It did not exist.
I could play higher than an A. What did you
I could
sell?
play higher than an A. And we can get into the technical things. I learned to play an A.
Yeah.
And then it became a good note.
Yeah.
Later. And then, I remember when back in the day, when Rick Baptist was in his prime,
yeah.
We played in the football band, we played in the LA Raiders band, and we played in the LA Rams band, and he was the lead trumpet player, and he, he had pretty ferocious chops. And man, he had the smoking A, man. And I always said, I'm going to make my A sound like that. And I always strive to, to make it sound like his. It had teeth.
Yeah.
So
well, you definitely found the slot since. I'll give you that.
Yeah, and all of that's it's kind of still there, but a little different now that as I've gotten older and my life has changed and things have happened to me. But I can still do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were, and I'm sorry for that. And I did in Old Holy Night. I was feeling, double high D is not always in my wheelhouse. But the day of that recording, I decided to do that on a whim.
Yeah.
And it clicked into this slot where it usually doesn't even click. Like, oh man, I got that pretty good, And I said, let's do another one, and I won't do that. And Tom Kuba said, we are not doing another one. And I go, oh, okay. So I didn't think about, now I have to play that every year.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you a funny story about this year.
Yeah.
So I've had to do it a lot of times, and I've usually been pretty successful. Sometimes I played a little better than others. Yeah. I'm tired. I have to leave a note out or take a breath somewhere, whatever. We all have to do what we got to do, And this last year, I was going to work up for it. It was coming up. So I was in here in my studio and I'm playing it. Let me just play it a bunch of times. So I play it and I'm going, okay, I can still do this. I still got it, And I go, I go, man, I got this. So fast forward to just a few weeks ago. We're on the gig, and Tom goes, you ready to play this? I go, yeah, I'm ready. So he tells the whole story, big build-up about this has become a big trumpet anthem, and it's making me nervous, And I'm going, and he's going, all these trumpet players are, wanting to play this note now. And so we're playing it, and I get to the high part. I go, and I go, oh, it feels pretty good. And I can hear myself pretty good. The ambience is good. I go, I go, it's pretty easy. It's all going very well. It's going very well. I'm going, oh, I got this, man. I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna nail this double high D like I did on the record, like I did 35 years ago. And we get to, I go, I get that really good, man. I go, nothing comes out, man. And I was like, and so I'm not the type of person that's going to go for it again.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing,
Just get the horn and just
because if you miss it again, or go to a lower note or, whatever. So the band is big right there, and they're going, wow, and they're playing big, and the crowd exploded anyway. The note wasn't even necessary in the song itself.
Yeah.
The build up to it is what
yeah.
gives it that impact. Like MacArthur Park, when Maynard hits that A, it's in the melody itself. It has nothing to do with the trumpet.
Yeah.
So there's certain tunes that do that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that one does that. So even if you miss it, or even if you play the lower octave, it's very effective. Now, trumpet players are probably pissed off if you don't play that note,
I travel from the other
because
side
they
of the
want to hear
world
that note,
this. Yeah.
But to be perfectly honest, I'm a human being and I'm 67 years old now, and it's getting harder.
There are not many 67-year-olds that have that note at all. That's crazy.
I can do it. I can still do it, and I've done them on sessions. And some days I go, I've got this, and some days I'm, I hit some pretty good double high C's a couple of weeks ago with a plunger mute with one hand at the Midwest Band and Orchestra. I'm going, why is that easy today? Why is that coming out? You know what I mean? I'm feeling like I couldn't do this yesterday, but today I can do it.
Yeah. Don't think, Wayne. Don't think. Just do.
But and we'll get into why. I know why that is, and we'll get into it in some of your other questions, because I do know why that is.
Yeah.
I think I have a pretty good answer anyway. So anyway, that's. I'm sorry for that. Everybody has to play a double high D. And I've heard in La La Land's the same thing. I had to play this cadenza that ends on an A, and so I've watched many trumpet players trying to play this to film, and unfortunately, it's a very embarrassing moment if you miss it because there's nothing happening. So if you look at that music, that maybe we can put up later, I can send it to you. Mm-hmm. If you look at that music, there's 3 optional notes. So like if an orchestra's playing it, they don't have that note. It just needs to match the picture.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter if you hit an A. If you don't have an A, you shouldn't try to play an A. And so I've heard many trumpet players like yodel, and it sounds like somebody putting a cat in the blender, and you can hear the audience laugh.
Wow.
So that's how exposed that is. So I'm sorry for that as well. It wasn't my choice to do that. They told me to do that when we were recording the movie. So.
I love that. So I got a question here actually. It's more relevant to what you were saying about in your first story actually. But I think it's quite good. How have you transitioned from being one of the younger players into the top position in Hollywood? And what responsibilities do you have, both holding the trumpet, but also in the broader sense, being in this position?
I can tell you a lot of it is attitude. Like I know when you got on your first sessions with some big players, knowing your personality and how you are, your first thing is like, how do I fit in?
Yeah.
Here, how do I make them like me? How do I make them want to have me here?
Yeah.
And not everybody thinks that way. People get in there and go, how do I move up the ladder?
Yeah.
My first thing is like, man, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah.
And when I got on my first sessions, that's how. So I played the best I could. I listened. Man, you become all ears, right?
Yeah.
And then over the years, you get accepted, and you're starting to be there a little bit more, and then you start moving up the ladder. They start realizing your skill set. Maybe you can bring something that one of these other players can't do as well, or can't do, or whatever, being a different style of music, and you end up in the first chair.
Yeah.
And so I try to lead by example now that I'm older, and try to encourage new people there and try to make them feel comfortable. I want them to feel comfortable being in the section with me.
Yeah.
And realize that we're just trumpet players. We're all equal here. And I know we all have a skill set and we can all do the job. Let's just get this job done and no egos involved and get all that bullshit out of the way.
Yeah.
And with the trumpet, unfortunately, that's a really hard thing. So you trumpet players that are listening, that's the most important thing, is to forget about how great you can play. If you're playing fourth trumpet and you're going, I should be playing first. or why aren't I playing first because this composer used me on first last time. Things change. And if you want to still be around this group of people and want them to like you, you better be respectful and encouraging to other players around you. I'll tell you a quick story. I worked with Rob Shear yesterday,
Great.
who's become one of my dear friends. And he's, quite a bit younger than me as well. And he's a very, very good trumpet player. And I've watched him come up the ranks, and he's just kicking ass. He's a great classical trumpet player. He can play lead. So we're playing a big band session yesterday, and he's playing first. And there's some high Fs. And he can play the shit out of a high F. But he's told me, he goes, I'm just so nervous because you're here. And we're friends. I mean, we're buddies. We have dinner together, and, I play with his kids, and, and he just goes, man, I feel like you should be doing this. I go, man, you got called to play first trumpet, dude. And he just said, and he goes, well, if I need you to play this, would you play? I go, of course. We're just here to take care of each other, but you got this. If you don't feel like it's going well for you, I would do the same thing if I was having a bad day. I go, hey, can you cover this? Or if it's something more classical, then I'm not making it. I know when I'm not making it, And then he ended up playing the crap out of it. He did great. He played it great, and he got better as we went, as the pressure was off, Yeah. And I just said, dude, I'm your ally. That's what I said. I'm your ally. Yeah. And so you never have to think about that with me. And he goes, I know. He goes, I know. But, I go, now, some of our colleagues, maybe not so much. I go, but with me, you can rest assured that I've got your back.
Yeah.
Just like you've had my back on numerous occasions. When my chops were down after cancer and all that stuff, my colleagues helped me out. So I think that's really important to be as you're coming up the ranks, to know your place. And then when you're in the top, you're getting older, and you're kind of in charge a little bit more on some level.
Yeah.
I think it's good just to remember where you came from and have that attitude. I know many, many players that have skipped that, and then you don't ever see them again.
Yeah.
Because who wants to play with somebody that you feel like is gunning for you?
Simon Gardner once said to me, he said, you got to look after the young guys because one day they'll be looking after you.
That's exactly right. That is a great quote, and I will use that. Simon, thank you for that, man.
It's a nice one. I will never forget.
And Simon is, we were talking about Gary Grant.
Yeah.
He's the epitome of that rock, solid trumpet player with the sound like a freight train.
Yeah. And
swings hard, man. And, one of my very favorite lead players of all time. I remember when I did that gig over there, man, and hearing his sound, I was like, oh, okay, we are in good hands here.
He knows what he's doing, for sure. This next question is kind of built into the previous one. And I guess just talk broadly about it. But do you have any advice on dealing with authority in the form of demanding clients in the box, or a conductor with an attitude problem, while also standing up for the other players in your section? How do you balance these things in a lead position? So similar to the last question, more specific. Or you may not have problems in LA.
No, there's always problems. I mean, you've always got a writer that can't write. I mean, you've experienced them there. Even on, a big project, sometimes somebody's nephew is the composer all of a sudden. Yeah. And they go, yeah, he owns a banjo, so let's let him compose a score, and or him or her or whatever,
Yeah.
But they're in charge. Mm-hmm. And I try to be, somewhat of a diplomat. I feel like I'm pretty good at that, dealing with incompetence sometime even. It can be frustrating, and the parts are an octave too high, but sometimes we just take it amongst ourselves to look at the part, go, hey, this should be down an octave.
Yeah.
And not get pissed off. Now, don't get me wrong. I've gone into asshole mode a couple of times, but only if disrespected, and I will burn the bridge. I will burn the bridge. If I go, I don't ever want to work for this person again. If they're being I don't care if I work for them again. If they disrespect me or any of my colleagues, I will go the fuck off.
I've got a question here that says, has there ever been a session where the writing has been so demanding or bad that you and the other guys have had to down tools?
What does that mean?
Just like, guys, I'm putting my trumpet away and I'm leaving.
Well, I've only left one gig ever, and it was a church gig.
Okay.
And it was funny because it was an orchestra, and there was all this hard trumpet stuff, and it was a lot of young players, and they brought in a couple of ringers. So I'm playing all this David Clydesdale music, who wrote for a lot of Christian things, and really great writer.
Yeah.
But high fanfares on high E's, and great voicing, like sounded like Copland,
Okay, yeah.
But it's loud, and the conductor is giving me the hand and giving me the hand. So I point down and I put a towel down, and eventually I'm in a mute. I'm in a bucket mute, and it's still too loud. So one time I don't play, and everybody else plays. And I go, "How was that?" And he goes, "Perfect." And I go, "I know what you want." I go, "I know exactly what you want." I go, "Somebody else." And I packed up my horn and I left. I left the rehearsal. And it's the only time I've ever left a gig that.
That's a great story.
Career.
Yeah, I mean, down tools. Yeah, exactly.
But you have to be a diplomat in that situation, because other people's careers are involved, and you want to. Composers learn too, even young composers. They get in there, maybe they don't do such a great job, and they've got an orchestrator that's kind of taken their music. They've turned chicken shit into chicken salad somehow. Yep. And it's all kind of workable. It's not the best chicken salad, but it's edible now. And so your job is to kind of fix it, and maybe you make a suggestion. And a lot of times, the younger composers are open to suggestion, because they know they don't know, maybe, or inexperienced composers. So that can be okay too, but we all have to deal with that, and it's part of our job description. So I can take my ego and I can go, well, screw this. I don't need this. I don't need to be around incompetence. But I'm hired to do a job here. So my job is to make this as comfortable as possible and play it the best I can.
Yeah.
And it's not my job to rewrite their music.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So, and unfortunately, so because of that, some music that's out there is not the greatest, but it's
also, if you want the work to stay around, then I guess you've got to give
you want to
give the
work
clients a good experience, right?
Yeah, you want them to work with you because it infects a lot of people. I can't think about it just me.
Yeah.
We can bitch about it later over beer or whatever and complain. And when you do get another call, hey, did you get a call for such and such? Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
We call it like if they're conducting, especially and they're horrible conductor, like we say visors down. That means have your hat on and never look up. Just listen to the click, of course. And we have to do that a lot. So anyway, a lot of that goes on in the recording business, as you know.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to know. I mean, this is another question that would be relevant to what we've just been talking about. I see a lot of amateur players in my teaching studio, and their motivations are usually different. They even have a sort of freedom from the pressures of having to provide. Has the pressure of playing for money affected your love for the instrument? And if so, did you have to change the way you viewed things?
It didn't affect my love for the instrument.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, getting paid for the first time to play probably inspired me to go, oh, I can make some money doing this? Well, this is a lot better than working at McDonald's or, any other job I could be doing, So it's all, what it made me do was it didn't make me change the way I think, but it made me go, maybe if I can do more things well, I can be paid more to play the trumpet, to do the thing I love most. And so, like we were just talking about, it's not always the most gratifying music, and we always want to play great music.
Yeah.
So that's the most fulfilling thing. It's not even the money.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
If I'm playing in a great band, playing with the Big Phat Band, we don't make a lot of money. But when we go out there and play, I'm like, oh man, if I could do this every day and get paid a lot of money, this would be awesome.
Yeah.
But that's just not reality.
Yeah.
But doing those gigs have led to gigs that pay more money. But the more things you can do well, the more money you're going to make. And so it didn't change the way I thought. It motivated me more.
Okay, let's change the question then. So has the pressure of playing for money affected your ability to perform? Is that a better question? Like, have you ever felt...
that question, yes, because... Well, as you know, in our line of work, it's a little more nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Because when you're playing a live gig, you just play, and if you miss a note, nobody cares. But if you're in the studio and you're missing a note 5 times in a row, it's going to start affecting your career,
Yeah.
Unless it's something that's just so ridiculous. You go, hey, this is not playable by anybody in this section. That should tell you something.
Yeah.
you know, but and that's when one of those moments come, like if you're having a bad day or whatever, the person next to you, hey man, will you cover this? That's when you have to go. You're a football team. You got to know who to give the ball to.
Yeah, you have to humble yourself in a way.
When you need to win the game, and so that's some good advice there. But playing for money puts more pressure on it for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. But when you're around colleagues and when you're in an environment with players and composers it can be a little more forgiving because they all kind of know, like, man, he missed that, no big deal. He nails it all the time, Everybody's entitled to miss a few times, I know. Yeah. And or they'll give you a couple of tracks that, hey, let's overdub that to make it easier, whatever, because they realize it's hard. And so it can be okay. But for the new player coming into that situation, being put in the hot seat, it could be very, very nerve-wracking.
I remember in my first
not fun.
In my first few sessions, I remember being told all the way through my musical upbringing that when I go and work in the studio, if I miss anything, I'll never be back. Like you get one chance and then you don't get another chance. And I mean, I don't even think that's true. But I don't think that's entirely true. I like to think of it as like kind of get out of jail free cards. It's like if you've been early every single week, to every single session that you're at, you get there nice and early. So even if you are late once, then you've kind of built up a series of get out of jail free cards so that you can prove yourself. And same thing with missing things. If you have one bad day in 100, then that's fine. But yeah, if you're coming in the first time, you don't really have an option. You've got to drill it. You can't be coming in on a bad day.
But you can miss notes in that situation, but most of it has to be really good where the players were like, oh, this person can play.
Yeah.
You can feel that
get
immediately.
A sense, yeah.
I can sit next to somebody in 3 notes, and I can go, oh, they can play. Matter of fact, one of your colleagues was here. We did a session for Jerry Hay.
Oh, John Thurkle, yeah.
Yeah, John Thurkle. I don't know him.
Yeah.
I know his name because he's done a lot of pop things and stuff.
Yeah.
But he was out there on the session, so he's playing second trumpet. Yeah. And he was a really cool guy, and we're chatting and he seems a little bit nervous maybe. But I'm like, whatever, man. So this cat's here.
Yeah.
He's with the composer. Let's do it. I heard him warming up. I go, oh, this guy's got good sound.
Yeah.
And then we sound checked on something and he nailed it. Oh, this cat's great. Yeah. You can tell and whether somebody can do the job or not right away.
Yeah.
And then if they miss a couple of notes, he missed a note or two, I missed a note or two as well, So it immediately takes the pressure off him, and me, so we're like, hey, we're just colleagues here knocking this out. But it can be nerve-wracking. I can imagine, if I came over there, it would be like going into New York for the first time. I go, I better have my shit here because there's going to be 4 people here that can do it. I remember Derek Watkins, a trumpet player, came over to play with the BBC one time and was having chop problems. And Derek said something, oh, fucking just give me the part. I got someplace to be. I got to get out of here, And so it could be like that,
Yeah.
Because, those players like that could be a little, snarky, and that's happened here in town too. There's a not to get too long-winded. There was a trumpet player who remained nameless who had a father that was in the business and started putting on recording sessions.
Yeah.
And they were on a jingle and he was playing first trumpet and Malcolm McNabb was playing second trumpet.
Yeah.
And they've got an hour to do this jingle, and Malcolm's got another session to go to, or 5, or whatever. And the trumpet player kept missing it and missing it and missing it. And it was kind of more classical, and it wasn't this guy's bag. And he goes, hey, man, I got to be somewhere. Will you mind? I can't go overtime. And he took the parts. Would you mind if we change parts? And he did it in one take. And they go, oh, that's great. And he goes, I'll see ya. And because they were about to go into overtime. And so Malcolm saved them from going into overtime.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he never said anything bad about the person or anything. He just said, I got to get out of here.
It reminds me of a story of Derek. Again, how true this is, I don't know. I mean, I hope it's true, but the story's good anyway. So Derek Watkins, again, he's playing with I think it was an American trumpet player who remained nameless. Came over to go and play with Derek, and I think I don't know. There must have been some kind of vibe, like some weird vibe, and I think Derek was on second or something, and this other trumpet player was on lead, and
it might be the situation we're talking about.
It could be. Well, there's a good moment at the end of it. They're doing a TV. I think it's something on TV. Or I don't know what it is. Anyway, I think Derek's giving some attitude for the whole day. I don't know. Some things happening. Anyway, this other trumpet player says right on the last tune of the gig, it says, "Fine then, if you think you're so good, here you go," and chucks him the part. Anyway, Derek plays the chart absolutely spotless.
I can imagine.
Spotless. And then gets to the last note and totally spaffs the last note. Anyway, Derek starts laughing after he's played it. And this other trumpet player, he looks at Derek and he says something like, "Well, see, you're not so good after all, are you?" And Derek said, "It doesn't matter because everyone thought it was you."
That is a great story. And it seems like I'd heard that story, so there might be some teeth to it.
I hope it's real. I don't know, though. But anyway, it's a good story.
God. Yeah, I hate, saying disparaging things about, different people.
Of course.
But, if the player comes in that's got attitude, then have at it. If they're just struggling and having a bad day and being nice about it, that's another thing.
It's just a great story. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a fantastic story. Yeah, man.
I've got two questions here that I guess are relatively linked. Actually, we'll do this one first. Speaking of other trumpet players, do you think that that lead trumpet players are all the same or share similar personality traits? And if so, why do you think that might be the case? And are there any obvious outliers that you know of? And I'll just frame this in that,
I'm gonna show you the attitude that most lead trumpet players have. You watch my cup. Here we go. Right.
Oh dear.
Just have a nice day on one side.
Yes. Yes, you have to watch the video, everyone who's listening to this on Spotify.
You have to watch what I just showed. But no, many do. Most of the great players I know.
Let me just frame the question for you a second. Sorry.
Okay.
So the reason I asked the question is one of these why questions in a sort of roundabout way. Is like, so maybe yes, maybe they don't, maybe they're not all the same, but. What is it about these people that makes them do something so crazy, right? Like there's something crazy about playing lead trumpet. It's not a kind of normal day job.
I've thought about that before. It's like, but you think about the different kind of lead trumpet players there are. I mean, there's a lot that you see the person. Maybe it's somebody that's a big guy. They're always kind of big and overweight, and they got a big head, and you see them play, and it's like. And there's fire coming out of the bell. And then you talk to them, and they're the sweetest, most soft-spoken person you've ever met. And you go, how could that possibly be?
Yeah.
Inside there's got to be a fire somewhere of something. And I don't know. Maybe they're suppressing that. And maybe they're trying to overcome that so they don't look like an asshole. They're probably inside thinking, I am so fucking good. I am just nailing this. Nobody could play this as good as me. And a lot of lead trumpet players do think that way, of course.
Yeah.
But it's been proven time and time again that a lot of people can do it.
Yes.
And so it's kind of good to get over that, of course.
Quickly.
We all just do it a little differently, maybe, and whatever. We all got something we can do. But that's interesting to me, the different, and there are a lot of people that are aggressive, and you think to play the drums or the trumpet, you've got to be aggressive. But it's not the case.
Yeah.
When you look at Greg Bissonette, or Ray Brinker or Peter Erskine, they're all kind and
gentle.
They don't have aggressive personalities. And you, man, you're one of the greatest lead trumpet players of our time. And you're the nicest person ever, man. I can't imagine you being an asshole to anybody, or like, well, I don't know. Maybe if somebody
you should have checked me out in my early
20s,
man.
You don't
I
like
was
you
fiery. I had to have children to calm down. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You know how to deal with that thing. So I don't know. I don't know if I have a great answer to that question.
It's a silly question more than anything. But
yeah. But it is. They're trumpet players. There are many it's usually when somebody's aggressive though in personality and and they're a lead trumpet player and an aggressive trumpet player, usually there's something missing.
Yeah.
Where they have to talk about their greatness.
It's like a compensation.
They have to talk about their greatness, or they have to tell people what to do to look like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I've always been of the school, like I said, like playing with somebody. I can hear in 3 notes whether you can play or not. You don't have to tell me how great you are.
Yeah.
We can play a tune together, and I'll know exactly how you play. Be good or bad or indifferent or pretty good, and I'll give you a couple more chances, and eventually I will know. You don't have to tell me anything. We don't even have to talk. We don't even have to speak the same language.
Yeah.
But these trumpet players, and you see them online all the time, that are very aggressive about their, like, if you want to play like this, and then they hit some lame ass double high C, or close to a double high C as you can get,
Yeah.
and then they go, see, look how easy that was. Buy my method because you will be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's all bullshit.
Yeah, it's not the truth.
Yeah, there's no method that's going to, you have to be one-on-one with somebody, I believe, and analyze what they're doing and give them some sound advice. So that whole ego thing, so those people tend to be the most aggressive, I think, and it's because of inadequacies in what they can do, and they really don't know what they're doing, maybe.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but some of them. And maybe I'm wrong about that. I mean, there's probably some people up there that have something good to say, and I've seen a few of those. I mean, I've recommended many YouTube videos. I've said, oh, man, this person knows what they're talking about, and I say, check this out.
Yeah.
You know, like there's this cat, I forget his name, is Dominic, and his name starts with an F, and he talks about Clifford Brown and how ghost tonguing.
Oh, right.
And I've never known how to. It's one of those things I've never known how to teach. I can do it, it's like this thing, like going,
Yeah.
Right? And it's just something I've always been able to do. I heard Clifford Brown do it. I go, oh, you just do that.
Yeah.
But you try to teach somebody how to do that, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
One dad and dad and dad. And so this person, the best teacher of it I've ever seen. And I'm sorry, I can't think of his last name.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I would, that's great. So there are some people out that are really, are teaching greatness and are nice people, but there's a lot of, and he probably, wants some money for his website or something, but whatever, that's okay. If you're
we want to be sustainable in a way, haven't we? So.
Yeah, there's something out there that's good,
Yeah.
But there's a lot out there that's just, we should have Bobby Shue on this conversation because he would, he would be tearing those people.
Maybe I'll do one with the three of us. That'd be funny.
That'd
be good.
But anyway, I didn't mean to get so long-winded with that. But
no, that's an interesting point, though. That takes me on to, it's not a question I've got explicitly down here, but it's something that interests me. Or maybe, here's a question that's maybe closest to what I'm trying to say is, what's the ratio between pure intuition and technical analysis? Would you agree with the statement, great concept in musicianship harbors great technique? Or do you see this the other way around? In other words, if you can hear that Clifford Brown thing that you just expressed, that palette of sound, right? One of the things I think is super important about being a musician of any kind or any craft really is that when you hear the result, that you have a means by which you can sort of tell the computer, or that the mind doesn't sort of get in the way, right? The sound of Clifford Brown goes into your ears. You're processing the sort of thing that he's making, and then your body just miraculously kind of just knows how to do that. So, and then when you say, I've never been able to teach that, and one of the things I struggle with is, well, in a sense, why would you need to, if that connection between the concept that the person is actually, are they actually just not clear enough on the concept? Do they actually know what they're hearing?
That could be, for sure. They could not be clear enough on the ground. But, like, back to the car analogy, I went and opened the hood when I saw this guy's thing, and I said, how am I doing this?
Okay.
And I go, oh, I'm going, I'm doing exactly what he said to do, but nobody told me to do it. But it's like, it can be like learning to speak when you're young.
Yeah.
Nobody gives you a book. Oh, here's the letters.
Yeah.
No, your first word you say is no.
Yes, it is. I
The
can
first
see
word
that.
you learn is no. Nobody told you how to spell it. You heard it so
I
many
wish my
times.
3-year-old
No,
could
don't
say
do that.
yes. He still only says no, even if he
Now-
means yes.
Yeah. So so with that, I mean, it comes back to what we talked about earlier. I think intuition is a great thing, but it can lead to bad habits when it comes to some of the more physical things with the trumpet.
I guess the speech analogy would be like, okay, so no one teaches you how to speak, but then you develop a lisp. Okay.
Yeah.
Or
Now, how do
some
we
kind
correct
of
that?
impediment, and then you have to go back in, reprogram, and then the computer kind of works properly.
Because nobody corrected, like if you're saying a word wrong over and over. Like my daughter, Ella, who
Yeah.
you've met, who's
Yeah.
20 now.
Wow.
When I got divorced, I moved into an apartment, and she used to call it a department. And I thought it was cute. She'd go, your department. And so
Yeah.
she was saying that, I go, it's apartment. And I had to correct her on it. So I'm just a shitty father, is basically what it comes down to. And makes me a shitty trumpet teacher too, because I don't correct it,
I don't know about that.
If you, so I will take somebody, like some different people, some things come naturally to them. If I don't think it's going to be a problem down the road, I won't address it.
Okay.
But for me, growing up, I could do a lot of things natural, and my trumpet teacher, who was a very good trumpet teacher to me, didn't address some of those things
Yeah.
with me early on, and I developed a lot of bad habits
Right. Yeah.
that I was trying to correct later in life, and as you know, are a lot harder to correct
Yeah. Yeah. for sure.
later in life. Like both of us have herniated necks. If I knew what I knew now, this would not have happened to me. I wish somebody would have given me just some bit of advice about whether it's putting my head down when I play to support this,
Yeah.
or play with less upper body tension,
Yeah.
how to breathe and support correctly and all those things. It would have helped me. So in that situation, my intuitions were wrong.
Okay. Yeah, that's reasonable.
This was all working correctly. Like I had this stuff. Nobody had to tell me, open your aperture,
Yeah.
make a seal, put a lot of air between the reeds and make it go.
Yeah.
I was somehow able to do that naturally.
Yeah.
But with that came some problems.
That's an interesting thing. Yeah. That makes sense. That does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So you got to go back. I mean, I think what I tell people now is I tell everybody, I was talking about the technical side of the trumpet. Knowing what I know now, I feel it's really important for young musicians on any instrument to have some sort of classical upbringing,
yeah.
because
Yeah, I agree with that.
in classical music, they address some problems, like the front of the notes, how we release a note. And it may be different than jazz, but it's easy to do the things in jazz that are difficult to do in classical music.
Is this a fair thing? Is this a fair comment? If you, I've just thought about this now, so I haven't tested it, so I could be talking nonsense. But if you learn to be a jazz trumpet player or a commercial trumpet player, but let's just say jazz, right? You go down that route. I think it's probably harder to learn how to articulate classically from that position than the other way around. I think if you are trained as a classical trumpet player, it's a little bit like riding a bike. You can always access that articulation, which you can't do if you've never been pointed towards it. Would that be fair?
I've taught many classical trumpet players how to do ghost tonguing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And instead of going ba 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 da ba 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 da, teach them to go vat and do that and do that, right?
Yeah.
Sounds way better.
Yeah.
I've easily been able to teach them that, knowing what I know.
Yeah.
But then again, if you've grown up a jazz or a commercial musician, in the front of your notes, here, let me pick up a trumpet here at least. You go, which is acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing it kind of extreme. I would never choose to play quite that sloppy.
Yeah.
But then trying to get
It's a vibe. Yeah.
and get that precise. I had to work on that hard.
Yeah.
And I still work on it to this day, when I hear when I hear classical trumpet players play, the first thing I notice that's inadequate in commercial players is the front of the note.
Yes.
It's the first thing I hear that's wrong. Even if they're playing the music great, the front of the note's not right.
Yeah.
And the importance of all the notes, like we're in jazz, all the notes aren't as important.
Yeah.
If we go, right, jazz trumpet player go, which sounds fine. A classical trumpet player go,
Yeah.
that second note is just as important as the first note
Yeah.
when you play a fanfare or something, right?
Yeah.
So trying to, and it's in the articulation, and you can't go tha, tha, tha.
Yeah.
It's got to have point and front end. And so that comes from listening, and if you hear classical trumpet players play, and so it's taken me a long time to learn that. Am I great at it? No, but I'm pretty good at it now,
Yeah.
at getting that elegant front end on the sound.
Production, right?
And so it's harder to teach a jazz musician, I would think, to get that, though. I would completely agree with that.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it before, but I think it's
A good question, actually.
I think if you're spread too much, right,
Yeah.
to get that thing, or even the volume that you may need as a commercial player, like to bring that all back in and have the control. Anyway,
You can think about it any way you want, but between like a lead trumpet player, like for I'll use an example as a player, John Lewis and I,
yeah,
who's one of my favorite trumpet players on the planet.
yeah,
He has a skill set that's unbelievable. He also has got kind of a good commercial sound,
Yeah.
but he can't access the highest notes, but he's solid, lead sounding player. And him and I have talked, we ask each other's questions all the time. He wants what I got, I want what he's got.
Yeah.
So we talk about that. And I explain to him what I do. And what I do is very different from how he approaches the trumpet. So unless he embraced something total opposite
yeah, yeah,
of what he's thinking, he's not going to be able to do what I can do. And if I negate what he has to say, which I don't. So I have to make a physical change in the way I play the trumpet to play more classically and play with a clearer tone
yeah.
and a rounder tone.
I think it's basically a different instrument.
And my
right?
aperture control becomes very different. It becomes smaller.
Yeah,
It still gets bigger when I get louder, but not like when I'm playing big band.
yeah,
It's a much more controlled environment and a smaller circle or oval, whatever it is. And I've noticed it. So it's very different from playing when you're playing like a high C, like big band going.
yeah,
I mean, I've got my tongue between my lips.
yeah.
I mean, if I hit a
Not
note
allowed
like
to do that, Wayne. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah,
okay?
I know you're not allowed to do that, but that's how I start that note. And I do it to keep the lips open so I can get the volume I want to get.
Yeah. Otherwise,
Because if your lips aren't open, you're not going to get volume.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm sorry, whoever's watching this would like to argue with me about this. I have science on my side.
Yeah.
And then I'll bring Bobby Shue in here and he'll tell you what's really happening. So anyway, for that kind of volume, you have to have a bigger space, That bigger space is not good for playing pianissimo.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get. That's pianissimo with that space, right? That's not the
Sounds
sound
efficient, Wayne.
That's not. That's pretty soft, though. You got to say, but that's not the sound anybody wants to hear in any orchestra.
No.
Right. So if I don't change my aperture, here's what I have to do to make that note come out.
Yeah.
Right? And we've heard that attack. We're all familiar with players that come in with that attack.
2-second
That's
attack
why.
time. Yeah.
It's not set up for an elegant attack.
No.
And I don't know. I don't want to say it's two different embouchures, but it's definitely two different approaches for me. And I'm not a classical trumpet player. I can fit in, and I've done very well on a lot of things, But man, I'm like Rob yesterday. If he's sitting next to me playing second and it's classical, I'm a little bit nervous, even though I know he's my ally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
that's fair.
but anyway, that that's a big part of this, is understanding that it's different. And if you can accept that, and I always tell John, if you do what I do, don't blame me if it screws you up.
Yeah.
Because it's a commitment.
Yeah.
And it's hard to go back and forth. I have to set up, depending on the kind of music I'm going to play, and I'll go to a little bit larger mouthpiece, of course, and whatever.
It's interesting you say that. I was teaching a really good trumpet player the other day. He's currently studying at college in London. Really good player, and he was playing a compromising mouthpiece. He was playing because he just moved from the classical course, and in his third year he moved on to the jazz course, and he's a really good lead trumpet player. He's gonna be a brilliant player. And he was playing a mouthpiece that was compromising. It was kind of, you could get away with playing classical music on it, and he could sort of just about play lead trumpet on it.
Right.
And I was kind of like, yeah, but are we really hearing the best of either of those things, or are we just getting by? You've got to treat it almost like it's two instruments in a way.
I completely 100% agree.
Because if you don't, then you just, you're always dissatisfied with what you're doing. So I hope he moved on to a smaller mouthpiece and started bottoming out, and his middle register didn't sound so good. But he all of a sudden sounded like a powerhouse in the upper register. And I thought, you can learn to play the low register on a small mouthpiece. It's not too big deal. But you do have to commit. It's a commitment.
Yeah, yes, you have to. It's not designed to do that. And it's not going to, when somebody says, I'll just play, you've seen trumpet players online, and some famous ones go, I'm playing a 1.5 C, and look at what I can do.
Yeah.
When I hear what they can do, and I go, well, it's a wrong sound, first of all.
Yeah.
And you're working really hard, and you look like you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just, let's be like, you're going to play the Brandenburg Trumpet Concerto. I can play it on an F trumpet. Oh, really? Well, why would you do that? Okay. Why wouldn't you just get a piccolo trumpet and use the right tool for the job and realize that, I'm not one to blame or give the equipment credit, but certain kind of things require certain jobs require certain tools.
Yeah.
You don't take a finishing nail and get a sledgehammer. You get a small hammer, or better yet, get a nail gun and and do it really efficiently, So I think you're absolutely right, and I've got that middle of the road mouthpiece too, where they're both kind of okay, depending what I have to play. Like if it's within a shorter, but if I'm going to play something with the strings and lyrical and elegant, I'm going to the thing that gives me the broadest tone, and the most forgiving sound that blends with that instrument. Yeah. And I'm going to play lead trumpet. I'm not going to even think about playing that mouthpiece on that, even though I might be able to do it. Yeah. It's going to hurt myself. It's not going to sound right. So people kind of have their head, to quote Bobby Shue, their head stuck in the sand of tradition. Yeah. Or ego, like, look what I can do on a 1.5 C. Yeah. And saying, oh, if you want a small sound, play a smaller mouthpiece. Well, I call bullshit. Because you don't have a small sound. I don't think I have a small sound. I don't think Bobby Shue has a small sound. Yeah. You know what I mean? The greatest lead trumpet players I know play some kind of commercial mouthpiece. Now, there's a few exceptions in there. Yeah. They can play, like Byron Stripling, for instance. Yeah. He's got really big chops. Yeah. Right? So he plays a big mouthpiece to compensate, and the lips go...
Yeah, he's got a lot of engagement, right? So it goes in.
Yeah, and so the mouthpiece is shallower than it is for somebody with thin lips. And so that's something that's considered with depth of mouthpiece. I think that everybody could agree with that makes sense. So there's no one size, these teachers that say, you have to play a 1.5 C because that's an orchestral standard. Yeah. That's bullshit. You use the right tool for the job, and what works for your, if you have a Honda Civic, you don't put 22-inch tires on it. You know what I mean? You put smaller tires on it, wheels on it, because it's the right size for that. Yeah. For the face, you put this circumference and everything has to be right for this space. Yeah. So if you've got a really, really tiny mouth, right? And then you're going to put this mouthpiece on it, right? And you wonder why, again, I can't play anything. I can't make a sound, this goes, it's just
really
it's so
weird.
logical to me, yet so stupid when you hear people talk about this,
Does
in such an asinine way. It's like,
got
it's just,
really
come on, man.
small mouth.
Come on, man. What are you talking about? That person should be playing the smallest circumference mouthpiece made. It's just stupid. So anyway, all right, I've made my point, I think.
That's brilliant.
I haven't used anybody's name yet, but you know who they are.
The small mouth people. What have all the best trumpet players of all time got in common, and what is one quality that you need to possess? So, and I'm talking maybe more from a mindset here, because Maurice Andre and Arturo and Doc, they're all very different players, but and any of the jazz guys, Clifford Brown, for example.
Yeah.
What do you think they all have? Is that a question that you can answer?
Well, it depends on the angle I come at it from. As far as what makes them great, I mean, I think identifiability.
No, from the other angle, I mean. So, what do you think they all have in common in terms of what do you think that they? We'll definitely go there with identifiability, because I agree with that. That's a really good point. But from the other angle, what do you think that they all think?
Well, I think they've all. I don't think any of those players you even mentioned, and we could go on with 100 more, that play like that haven't put the time in.
Okay.
Hard work and dedication.
Yeah.
Maybe there was some natural ability involved in there with all of them. I think there has to be some natural ability in some area to become great.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that makes this a little easier for you, whether it's in your physical makeup or whatever. But I think that would have to be the thing when you think about all those players. Every one of those players has worked really hard. There's proof over the years of it, of listening to how they practice and how they teach, and that they've spent hours and hours solving problems and becoming better at that. So
there's
none of those players just picked up the trumpet are that great.
Yeah,
that I can think of. Even people that say they are, I don't believe them. I don't believe any of it.
There's a great video I saw the other day of a golfer on the tour, pro on the tour, and he's talking to a couple of amateur guys, and the amateur guys say, "Oh, how do you get so good? How do you get great? What's the secret? What's the secret?" And this, and the tour pro just says, "How many times do you play a week?" So maybe once, maybe twice, the amateurs say. He says, You see, I play all day, every day, non-stop. I play golf all day, every day. So there might just be a difference there. Maybe we have to consider that, because it's quite important.
I can tell you what I do, and you'll be just as good today. That's that's the answer everybody's looking for.
Yeah, it's similar to the other. There's another Derek Watkins quote, actually. And the guy comes up to me and says, What's the secret? Come on, Derek. I just want to play high.
The secret to what?
Playing high. What's the high? What's the high note trumpet secret? Come on, what is it? What is it? And Derek just turns to the guy and says, I think I just want to do it a bit more than you. It's pretty harsh, but I think it's true. I think there's an element to it, and you're absolutely right. They put the hard work in.
All those trumpet players would say the same thing. I've heard Arturo say it.
Yeah.
Where he said, he'd ask somebody, how much a day do you practice? And they go, well, 45 minutes. He goes, you will never be able to do what I do. And he's probably got a point.
Yeah.
You're never going to do what I do.
Yeah.
He goes, I practiced for 8 hours a day when I was in Cuba. That's all I did was dedicate my life to the trumpet. And do you have to do that? I agree. At some point in the past, you would have had to do it more. Now, we've learned a lot of things that we found. I mean, I hate to say shortcuts, but we found shortcuts or things or we found answers to some of the problems that are a little more general, maybe, to some things.
Yeah.
So you can just go, well, here's 5 things that you can try.
Yeah.
That may work for you.
Yeah.
That you can, and let's experiment with those. And I think you've had students where you've gone, oh, we're onto something here.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden this person, we're talking about high notes, where all of a sudden they squeak some little thing. They go, oh, what was that?
Yeah.
It was a double high C. I mean, it sounded like an ant farting, but it was still a double high C, Let's make it, we're going to make that into a bigger ant now, and so we're on the right path maybe,
Let's go back to identifiability, because I think that was a really good point that you made. Like this idea that all the best trumpet players, the thing from the other side of the question,
that they want to have their own,
and that they're all instantly identifiable. Like you can tell.
Yeah, they have their own style and their own sound, and that's with pop singers or anything. All the greatest ones, like pop singers of today. You could put 10 of the greatest pop singers on, and even if they're okay, I'm not going to be able to tell you who's who.
Yeah.
But if you go back into the 80s and you give me Joni Mitchell and Stevie Wonder, and whatever, Maria Muldaur, or there's a ton of them, Barbra Streisand, you hear them, Barbra Streisand, Stevie Wonder. You hear the voice, James Taylor. Doesn't even have to be the greatest singers. Bob Dylan. Crosby, Stills, Nash. Instantly, the harmonies, and with trumpet players, it's the same thing. When you hear Clifford Brown play one bar, you hear, first of all, harmonically, you can hear where he comes from because he comes from where he comes from. But in his articulation, he articulates like nobody else.
Yeah, it's instantly identifiable.
The fastest single tongue on the planet ever, and he'll unmatched. In my opinion. I've been working on this after you've gone solo from Live at the Beehive from 1955. I'm working on the first chorus, and I'm just going, he played this off the top of his head. I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
And it's hard, man. And then it's hard enough to play. Trying to articulate the way he did is near impossible.
Yeah.
So instantly he's identifiable. Miles Davis, Maynard Ferguson, Doc Severinsen, Freddie Hubbard.
Yeah.
Clifford Brown, Lee Morgan, Fats Navarro, Kenny Wheeler. These players instantly either by their sound, by their articulation, or by their harmonically the way they play. Woody Shaw.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's what's kind of missing in today's players, even though there's so many great trumpet players. But they've all derived their playing from those players.
Yeah.
So you hear a lot of players play, and so they sound like Woody Shaw.
Yeah.
But I'm going, who is that? And I go, man, and they go, oh, that was such and such from New York or whatever. I go, oh man, yeah, I know that name, badass. Sounds just like Woody Shaw.
Yeah.
I don't hear them yet. In some players I do. This player like Scott Wentholt.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like I hear him playing, I go, okay, he's got that influence in him, but he's also got some traditional. And so I hear him go, I bet that's Scott Wentholt. And a lot of times I'm right.
Yeah.
So players with identity like that. And so with lead trumpet players, the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's harder to identify a lead trumpet player, especially with today's modern big band mixes.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
But back in the day when you could really hear the lead trumpet player loud and clear, you could hear it was Conrad Gozzo.
Yeah.
By the way he articulated and his compression of sound. I did this record with Bill Elliott for Michael Feinstein, and we recorded it just the way they used to do that, with very few mics at Capitol. And so the soloist had to point towards a certain mic, and it was all live, and the drums were in the room. And you can hear that it's Wayne Bergeron on lead trumpet.
Oh, yeah.
You'll hear it and know it's me.
Yeah.
Because I'm the loudest thing in the room, and they can't turn me down enough to get that out of there. But it sounds like, when you hear those bands, it was sitting where the lead trumpet player used to sit.
Yes.
And so, and I think I have somewhat of an identifiable
I think
style.
you have a very, very identifiable sound.
I've stolen my sound from many of my colleagues, and I have little bits and pieces of everybody. And there's not a note I play that doesn't have George Graham in it.
Yeah.
As far as the way I play a long note or something, or the way or Maynard. There's a little bit of Maynard in there, and a little Doc Severinsen. I would probably say a lot of Doc Severinsen, because I think that's the greatest commercial sound of all time.
It's ridiculous, yeah.
From the bottom to the top of the horn. You look at every recording of him, you will never hear anything that's bad, ever.
Outrageous.
From the time he started to his later days. So all identifiable though. So they all share that in common, and that's what makes them very special. And makes you special. You can hear you when you're doing a solo. Like, oh, that's Louis, man. Who else could play like that?
No. Well, that's very kind, Wayne. I think
there's other players that can play those notes and maybe play higher than you, but they're not you. They have their own thing. Or maybe they're, and you used to maybe emulate me a little bit, but you found your own sound, man. And now I'm like, I listen to you and I'm going, maybe I need to sound more like that, You hear something you like in somebody's tone,
Yeah.
And I think striving for that is good. You combine all those things. It's like hearing different voices when you're learning to speak language.
Yeah.
You hear your mom's dad and your dad's voice and your sister. I think all those things as you're growing up become your voice. All of those elements of what you've heard are in there.
The good and the bad.
And the bad, exactly. And if you hear something really bad, you need to avoid that like the plague, so it doesn't become part of your sound,
Yeah, you find that out when you have children and you realize all of a sudden you have to stop swearing for 18 years.
When you don't want your child's first words to be, "Hey, you asshole," because when you're driving and they're in their car seat,
Exactly.
You don't want that to be the first thing they say.
Exactly. Hey, so we're reaching the 2-hour markers, which is where I really wanted to cut this off for a first time, and I think we've covered a lot of areas. I just got maybe.
Go ahead, man.
I'm thinking. We got it. There are quite a few here that we can go over, but I'm gonna
just pick a couple that you want to get to.
Yeah. I'm looking at them and thinking. I'm thinking that let's combine these two, and then I'll ask you a last one. So here's 2 questions in a row. Do you think you were always destined to be a trumpet player? If you had to do an alternative profession, what would you choose and why? And then the other one is, if you could go in a time machine back to the start of your career, would you choose to do anything differently? And if so, what costs and benefits do you think you would experience as a result? They're similar questions, obviously. Getting to different answers.
So the first question is what again?
The first question is, what would you do if you weren't a trumpet player? Were you always destined to be?
I think I was always destined to be a trumpet player from the first time I played the instrument.
Yeah.
So I do think that. And the first time I got paid to play, I said, "This is what I'm going to do."
Okay.
So I always kind of just knew that, and I didn't know that it was going to be so fucking hard, but it has been my life and engulfed my life and what I love most. And if I was going to do something different, you're talking about career wise.
Yeah, if you have an alternate profession,
I'd probably be.
What's Wayne Bergeron's alternate profession?
I'd probably be a comedian, and I'll tell you why, man. And because first of all. And I think I have a quick wit to a fault.
Yeah, I do. I think you do.
Because I can't keep my mouth shut. Sometimes I'll say shit and I can't even stop it from coming out. And it might be the wrong thing to say at the wrong time. I usually don't try to offend people, but I'm trying to be funny.
Yeah.
And so I'll say whatever, on a recording session or whatever. Just something to be funny and break it and make the room environment comfortable. And I think that skill is much like playing. There's 2 kinds of comedians. There's 2 kinds of musicians. There's book smart musicians that have to have the music in front of them, and have the guide to whatever. And they can go off script a little bit, okay, but they really need to have their guide there. And then there's improvisers that don't need any of that and are flying by the seat of their pants, and anything that's thrown at them, they can react to. And comedians are very much like that.
Yes.
There's certain comedians that you hear them recite the same thing, and they're very, very funny. And I think a little bit of that is me. So when I have a script in front of a crowd, like if I'm doing a guest artist because I'm speaking, I have things I say. I have bullet points, and off on the fly. I mean, I need to have that there, and I tell some funny stories about songs. And you've heard me do my shtick, And I have some little jokes. I involve my daughter, and I've kind of turned it into a little bit of a comedy show.
Yeah.
But if somebody throws something at me, I have a quick enough wit to respond to that.
Yep.
And something always comes to me. I'm never thinking about it.
Yeah.
And
verbal diarrhea is what they call it, Wayne.
And Jack Sheldon told me, as a comedian, he goes, "You have to have planned comebacks if something doesn't come to you." Yeah. So he said, you have to, and you also have to take a risk So me spouting off when somebody, just to do something, it's taking a risk.
Yeah.
Just like you would as a jazz musician. All of a sudden you've got this chord and you go, fuck that chord. I'm going here and hoping the rhythm section's going to respond to that correctly.
Yeah.
Like your rhythm section will be your audience.
Yeah.
Right? So they're very, I found, and I analyze comedy a lot, and I found that there's a lot of similarities between the lead trumpet player that needs the script and the jazz musician that doesn't have the script. And then I find myself in the middle somewhere because I'm not a great improviser, but I know enough that I've got some material to rely on if I'm painted into a corner.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
If that makes sense. So, and if I didn't do that, I'd fucking do real estate or something, I guess. Let's make some money here, you know?
Yeah. What did you want to be when you grew up? Anyway, if you could go in a time machine back to the start of your career, would you choose to do anything differently? And if so, what costs and benefits do you think you would experience as a result?
Well, there's a lot of things I would have done differently with women, for sure. I'd like to go back in time and know what I know now, as we all would, of course. But you know, as a musician, or just as a person, and as a student, I was a flake, man.
Oh, really?
I was distracted by the trumpet.
Interesting.
As a good student, because all I wanted to do was play the trumpet.
Nice.
And all I wanted to do was drive my fast car. So I had two alternative lifestyles. One of them involved band geeks, who are generally pretty good people.
Yeah.
And people that drive fast cars are people that like to get high and stoned all the times and drink a lot of beer and let's go cause some trouble.
Yeah.
I was involved with both of those groups.
Yeah.
And I got into a lot of trouble.
Right.
Not most of those people are dead.
Wow.
Of my colleagues from back then are dead. So I could have gone down a very bad path. So I would change that, and I would have tried to help them.
Okay.
So they would still be here to this day. And we would have still driven really fast and stuff. Don't get me wrong. We'd still be doing all that shit. But I would have just tried to guide our lives differently because I made some mistakes, and I ended up getting such good grades.
Okay.
You know? But I was spending time doing that, so I learned a lot about cars and stuff, which is a good skill. I come from a very mechanical family.
Yeah.
So I worked as a machinist when I was young. So I could have easily gone into another career. I worked at McDonnell Douglas Aircraft, which is now Boeing at one point. So I could have done that for a career. I could have stayed with that, but I loved the trumpet, you know.
Yeah.
So I kept doing that, and I wish I would have just been a little more straight ahead with my schoolwork and actually learned a little bit more, because I learned a lot late in life.
Yeah.
You know, it's about grammar and I'm not the greatest writer.
We're not always ready to learn at that age, though. I mean, I've noticed that.
Yeah.
I can't stop.
But I look at you,
now,
man, and you were smart, man. And a lot of younger players that can do the trumpet thing, and they're left brain and right brain, and they can do both of those things and learn. To this day, it's tough for me to learn. Like I'm learning a new language and things like that. It's very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Where some people that comes very easy to them. So, but I think if I would have got my left brain going a little bit more when I was younger, that would have helped me. So that's something I wish I would have changed. I wish I would have learned to play the piano.
Okay.
I wish I would have. I was told that you either play lead trumpet or jazz trumpet. You can't do both. Somebody actually said that to me. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to play lead trumpet. And then I was like, shit, later in life, I'm going, why can't I improvise for shit?
Right.
You know, so much later in life, I said, well, I got to be able to kind of play somewhat convincing on something. You know, so I'm not great, but I'm learning a lot. And now I'm 67 years old, and I've got a Clifford Brown solo on my stand that I should have learned in 1976.
Yeah.
It was around then. You know, I should have learned it then, and I should have been trying to understand harmony more. And so I wish I would have done that. And then that could have led me into maybe being a composer as well.
Yeah.
Or an orchestrator. We're talking about money now. If we're just talking about money, let me tell you something. Somebody that's got the pencil on this side and putting those notes on the paper, and this person on this side playing them, this side is making a lot more money, even though this is drawing blood.
Yeah.
So you think about that, and not that it's all about just money, you know, it's about passion of what you do, but I wish I had those skills.
Right.
And I think I'm too old now to spend the time that it takes to get good at them, because, you know, there is no quick answer to anything like we talked about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of just try to improve as much as I can
Yeah.
with the years I have left. I'm going to try to be as efficient as I can. I'm going to learn new things and
Yeah.
experiment and try them, and not have my head stuck in the sand of tradition, and try to pass those things on to younger players that ask those questions best I can.
Well, I think that's a beautiful place to leave it, to be honest. I think anyone there should be able to hear the attitude that is required, even at the ripe old age of 67 there.
Holy shit.
Still trying to learn and still humble in the pursuit. So, thank you, Wayne, for your participation. I think we've cut a lot of interesting things.
Oh, no, this is fun. It's always great talking to you, man. We've had conversations this long without a script on numerous occasions, as you know. And I will notice one thing, anybody watching this podcast, I want you to check out Louis's hair. Right? How old are you, Louis?
31.
Okay. This is 67-year-old hair. Undyed right here. So that's the only one thing that we share in common. He's better at everything else. He's better than me.
I think I've got more grey hairs than you, though, Wayne, I must say.
Well, I'm just starting to get a couple now, which is just really weird. This can be off topic, but it should make the podcast, I think. But I always get asked, when my hair was a little bit longer, people think I'm just assuming I'm wearing a wig. So I started cutting. It's shorter in the back now, right?
Yeah.
So you can see it's not a wig. So I started cutting my hair shorter, and it's not. So people think I'm dyeing my hair. So I've actually thought about streaking my hair with some gray and saying, well, the hell with it. I don't care if it turns gray.
Yeah.
And then even cancer didn't take it away. And so.
Well, I'll be very happy if I'm 67 and I have hair like yours, Wayne.
But I don't care. I have my I have a lot of shortcomings, but I got pretty good hair, and it's just weird to me that I have good hair, because I deserve all of this should have fallen out a long time ago, and it should all be gray, because the amount of stress that my life has been through the last 5 years alone, with going through cancer treatments and doing all that crap, and then getting my we'll talk about this on our next podcast, but my dental snafu where they hit the nerve, and I had to relearn to play twice in 5 years, as you know.
Yeah.
And so it brings a lot of stress and stuff. So I'm surprised that all this just hasn't fallen out.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But anyway, it's been awesome talking to you, Louis. It's always a pleasure, man. And keep blazing the trail you're blazing, man. You're my hero on so many levels, and you have no idea how much pride I take in maybe just a little bit of having a role in making you what you are.
Thank you.
I mean, it's a very small role.
It's a big role.
If it guided you or whatever, man, I'm more proud of that than you have any idea. And I have a few other younger players that I feel the same way about.
That means the world. That really does. Thank you so much. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. So
thanks.
So let's do part 2 of this.
Yeah.
Let's do it soon, and then you can just put them out back to back.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, fantastic. Cheers, Wayne. So,
yeah, brother.
Thank you all to all the audience for listening to the first podcast. I think it's been a great chat, success, and I can't wait to do more with other guests. If you have anyone else in the trumpet world or the broader world, please get in touch with me via my website or in the comments with their name, and I'll add them to the potential list of interviewees. I will also be starting a premium content membership very soon, where you'll be able to see all sorts of exclusive live streams and Q&As, along with extra podcasts with even juicier content. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe we'll do chapter 2 on there. Who knows? It's just around the corner. And anyway, just before we sign off, any other final words for the audience, Wayne?
No, man, just, I'd like to thank a couple of people.
Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead.
That have helped me, especially I wanted to say to a couple of my colleagues, Vinny DiMartino, who, when I was recovering from my cancer treatments, he got online with me a lot and gave me just a wealth of information of how to come back. And I learned a bunch of new things that maybe when we're talking more trumpet geek stuff, we can talk about what he showed me that's really helped me and changed the way I played. Wow. Like I said, we keep learning, and I've learned some new ways of doing things. And, and Jerry Hay really helped me a lot. I asked him some questions, and you actually. I remember asking you some questions coming through there, and you really helped me, man. I learned something. And Bobby Shue, of course, was always my go-to first phone call whenever anything goes wrong with the trumpet. I just want to personally thank them, and maybe we can talk about them a little bit more in the next podcast. All a wealth of information.
Yeah.
Sometimes contradicting each other, but
That's
all
good,
very
though.
valid.
Yeah.
And I think with that comes is understanding that even if 2 points don't agree, you're usually trying to get to the same.
There's some
Final
truth in it all,
answer.
right? There's some truth in it all.
There's something. There's a way to get to this path. Which way is the best path? I don't know. I'm hoping that's true in politics, but right now none of this apply to that. So, but
behind the paywall. No. Anyway, thank you so much, Wayne. That's awesome. And again, thank you everyone for signing on and checking this out. Maybe we'll smooth it out, and I'll get better at this. But thank you very much for persisting.
You're great at this, by the way.
Thanks, man. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and I will catch you on the next one. Cheers.